Justin Fields will be starting this Monday night for the Jets against the Dolphins. Should he be cleared from concussion protocol? That, according to Jets head coach Aaron Glenn, who spoke about his quarterback status. This shouldn't come as much of a surprise. I know there were some folks wondering, and I did too. You kind of think, you look at the way Tyrod played last week and made some throws that maybe Fields can't make. And I talked about how Aaron Glenn is, the head coach of a team with a 14-year playoff drought and a winless season. Does he kind of put Justin Fields on ice for an extra week just to say, hey, you know what? Tyrod played well enough that we think we can win with him against Miami. Let's get off the schneid, get a win, and we'll say Justin needs another week. But ultimately, big picture wise, Fields is the guy who they're going to stick with as long as he can play. They have to evaluate him. They're not going to the playoffs this year. They're not going to win anything. This is about evaluating the talent on the roster. And you got to evaluate quarterback. We knew that was the case anyway, but folks, we'll get into this more in the coming weeks and months and, almost a year. These quarterbacks, these college guys, none of them look as good as any of us thought they would. As I said, coming into the year, didn't expect Arch to come out. Lenora Sellers was my guy. Thought Nussmeier and Klubnik were pretty solid, but I thought Sellers, again, because the Jets wanting that dynamic running quarterback who can throw it, I thought Sellers is the guy I kind of honed in on since late last year. None of them are playing that well. Sellers, to be fair, played some of his best football of the year this past week. So look, we'll talk about that more later. But I was thinking about it earlier today. And I'm like, man, this Jets team, even if you get a top 3 pick, how many quarterbacks do you really like that much that you would take at 3? If you're looking at him thinking, you know what, this guy's like a second rounder or 20, pick 20 value or grade, do we take him at 3? We'll find out. But we'll like I said, talk about that another time. It's just a thought that was on my mind because I was watching a little bit of college earlier, watching some Washington versus Washington State. Get a look at some of those prospects. I think there's some good players on that Washington roster, and we'll talk more come draft time. But Justin Fields, again, to suit up against the Dolphins after a game where the Jets offense did nothing last time he was under center. It was an absolute disaster against the Bills. Fields was all over the place with his ball placement, just couldn't hit a target. We talked about it during the game. Well, I should say it was talked about during the game. We talked about it after, and after watching the film, you see it even more. There were open receivers, that Justin Fields was missing that we saw in real time, and it was even worse when you watch the All-22. Same this week with Tyrod. As I said, Tyrod made some throws that you wouldn't see from Fields, but he just kind of it was like Tyrod wasn't seeing the receivers and Fields wasn't hitting them. So pick your poison. Wild Wave, how we doing, buddy? Glad to see you here. Gonna preview this Jets Dolphins matchup. A few key head-to-head matchups that are going to have a big impact on this game, in my opinion. Let's start with Jonas Avenea, the guard out of Arizona kid I liked last year quite a bit coming out. Played tackle in college. Wasn't the most agile guy, and he kicked inside to guard. It's a Senior Bowl where a lot of folks in attendance were saying, this 7A kid, man, you kick him inside to guard, and this guard class just got deeper because he apparently looked phenomenal. Wasn't there in person this year. Did see the the game film and the practice film that went out, and Savanea looked good at guard. He's not been good for the Dolphins at all. So I'm looking at that matchup with Quinnen Williams and thinking, let's get that matchup as often as possible if you're the Jets. Jawan Briggs, too, who has been a nice find. Give Darren Muji credit on that one. Jawan Briggs, you got him for pennies, and he's looked like a really good player. So you've got Briggs, you've got Quinnen. Of course, you've got Harrison Phillips in the middle as well, but he's not really the pass rush type. But I'll tell you what, I mean, against Savanea, everybody might be the pass rush type. We'll see how that works out. But I feel like that's a really big one if you want to pressure Tua, get him off his spot. We know Tua's injury history. I'll tell you what, though, the last thing I want is for him to come out of the game because we know how that would go, don't we? I mean, if you've been watching this team long enough, you know how that goes. I think Zach Wilson might be the one guy the Jets defense could slow down, to be honest. But They probably wouldn't. They just life of a Jets fan. You come and throw 5 touchdowns. But no, keep Tua on the run. He's one of the few quarterbacks. Used to be that facing a running quarterback was like the outlier. Now facing the guys who don't run, that's the outlier. So when you're looking every week, it used to be like, oh, this week you have to be ready because you're playing a quarterback who can run this week. Now that's like 14 out of 17 weeks. A couple times a year, you get a guy who doesn't run. It's like, ooh, that's a nice treat. So Tua is that guy. He's not going to beat you the way Josh Allen will, the way Lamar Jackson will. He's not a true, doesn't have that deep ball. I mean, listen, he's an NFL quarterback. He can throw it down the field, but he just doesn't have that velocity that the elites have. But he does have elite accuracy. At least in the games I've watched him. Coming out of Alabama, it was some of the throws you saw him making. So a couple of years ago, right? I think he was like top 2 or 3, maybe number 1 in the NFL in completion percentage. He puts the ball in the right spot, but he's been up and down, and Dolphins fans are fed up with him. Listen, he put a bunch of touchdowns on the board against the Bills, and then he threw a huge interception, and Dolphins fans were ready to move on from him, but that's just not going to happen as long as he's healthy. And so it's up to the Jets to rattle him, hit him, and try to get him out of rhythm, because when he's on with this offense, they can put up points. They just can't stop anybody right now. And part of the reason they can put up points is because they have guys, they love speed and guys who can make you miss. And I think, to me, the biggest, most important matchup in this game is Devin Achane against the Jets linebackers, because we don't even know who the linebackers are going to be. You got 3 starting linebackers, 2 of them went on IR this week. So whoever's going to be the starters, I would imagine, obviously with Quincy out, you're going to have Sherwood in his normal spot. And then you've added bodies. You poached a guy from the Pats and Robinson, added another guy in free agency. Jackson Sermon is a guy I like, that I wonder if the Jets are going to elevate him prior to the game. I think Sermon is a guy, picked him up last year as an undrafted free agent, looked solid in the preseason. Jets got an extended look at him this year. I've talked about that a couple times, how he was one of the guys they brought in to the rookie minicamp that they brought 8 veterans in. Sermon was one of them, and he hung around. They've kept him on the practice squad. So like I said, does he get elevated? We'll have to wait and see, but we right now don't know who their linebackers are going to be. I would imagine Mawagoa is going to get some run. He's been playing a little bit, but maybe he just gets a very extended role this week, expanded role this week, and Sermon or somebody else comes up and is ready to backfill when he comes out. So we'll see what they do there. But Devin Achane, that dude just makes people miss. And the Jets defense, they've gotten worse every week. I tweeted it out the other day. I think they had 8 missed tackles week 1, 10, 12 week 2, and then something like 16, depending on the outlet. I saw one outlet that said they had 19 missed tackles. I believe it was PFF that said 16. So they miss a lot of tackles. The Dolphins have explosive, quick playmakers. Tyreek Hill, obviously not happy in Miami, but he's producing. He's not dogging it. I think it was week 1 he was out of the game and complaining and all that, but I watched him last week and he looked solid. He didn't look like the Tyreek Hill of a couple of years ago, but I don't think even Tyreek Hill has ever looked like that guy since that year. But either way, they've got playmakers. You've got Waddle, who's going to be listen, every week is like Brandon Stevens is on watch, right? You went out, you got Jarvis Brownlee, who I don't think he's going to replace Brandon Stevens today. I don't know that he will at all. That might be, do you go with Azariah Thomas? Is he the guy who fills in if Stevens continues to falter? But I worry that's my concern this week is Achane against the linebackers and Waddle against Stevens. I think that's where you're going to see big plays. I think Sauce is going to get tasked with sticking with Tyreek Hill. And even, I see people dogging Sauce for giving up some yards last week. I mean, the biggest play he gave up was a play that you could not defend. Deion Sanders in his prime wasn't defending that throw. I mean, Baker Mayfield drops it not really in the basket, drops it over Emeka Egbuka's head, way over Sauce's head. Sauce has no shot to get a hand on it. And Egbuka elevates, goes fully extended, and gets it with his fingertips. and it's a huge gain. It's, oh, look, Sauce gave up 60 today. Yeah, he gave up a big chunk on a play that nobody is defending. There's not a corner in the NFL who's stopping that play. Perfect throw, incredible catch. That there's no defense for that. So again, people dogging on Sauce, I would tend to disagree. Another big matchup, both tackle spots. Olu's got Bradley Chubb. So in my mind, look, this is just my opinion. I know some people think more of Chubb than I do, but I think that's maybe a little bit lighter assignment than it was last week against Yaya Diaby. I talked about that before that game. I think Diaby's a really good player, up and comer. And Jalen Phillips versus Armand Membu will be the big one on the other side. Phillips, in my mind, easily Miami's most fierce pass rusher, most dangerous weapon they have in that front seven. So him going against Membu is big, but don't sleep on Jordan Brooks. Watch a little bit of Miami and you watch that defense and how they do things. Brooks is all over the place. He's lined up inside, outside, left outside, left inside, right inside, and blitzing from everywhere, getting a bunch of pressures. Jordan Brooks can be a factor. That O-line, that Jets O-line that struggled against the blitz last week, really needs to know where he is. And I think that, as we say, right, copycat league. The way Tampa Bay attacked the Jets last week, you're going to see that this week out of Miami, and until the Jets show they can stop it, that's what they're going to see. And then on the as far as the Jets go, I mentioned Quinnen on the interior against Savanea. On the outside, Will McDonald against Patrick Paul. Patrick Paul, enormous left tackle. He was another guy we saw a couple of years ago down in Mobile. And when you're talking about offensive tackles and everybody's 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", Patrick Paul, I mean, he might be listed at 6'7". It was like the dude was 6'10". His helmet was that much high. You could pick anytime you were looking for him, he was the easiest guy to find. Just check the O-lineman, and he's the helmet that's several inches above everybody else's. Patrick Paul, enormous, has been good. Good, not great. Will McDonald obviously has been one of the better pass rushers in the league over the past couple of years. Well, last year, and he's been off to a good start this year. So I think that's going to be a key matchup. And really, listen, with the Jets' lack of depth on the D-line and edge, that's going to be a weekly thing because you got to pressure the quarterback. And it's going to be Will McDonald and Quinnen Williams, who are the most adept defenders they have at getting in the backfield. Quincy was off to a hot start this year, had a sack and a half, a few QB hits in the first 3 games, and now he's out for 4 weeks. So you lose a guy who's probably your best blitzer, and that's going to take a little bit away. That's going to take a lot away from what this defense can do. The other linebackers, of course, will be, again, the guys who fill in are going to be, well, we don't know what they're going to be. They're going to be downgrades. We know that. They're not going to be on Quincy's level. But what they're going to be asked to do by the defense remains to be seen. But the Jets have to find a way to pressure Tua. They have to find a way to get him off his spot. You can rattle him, give yourself a chance to win this football game. And it's a big opportunity for Justin Fields because this Miami defense has not been good. The secondary has been porous. They've given up a ton of yards, a ton of big plays. And again, of course, when you're playing Buffalo, that's going to happen. But just on the season, Miami's defense is not, I believe they're 8.9 yards per attempt, which is 3rd worst in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. Looked that up earlier today. So this Miami team has holes. Listen, they're 0-3. You have 2 bad 0-3 football teams going for their first win of the year. They're both going to be desperate. It's Monday Night Football. So it might actually be a quality game. Like 2 bad teams, but 1 good game because they're both desperate. They both have some talented players. I expect the Dolphins to win this one somewhere in the neighborhood of 27-13, somewhere that type of ball game. Just what we saw from Justin Fields in his last outing, coming off concussion, even against a struggling defense. They're on the road. I find it hard to believe he's going to have a huge night. Wild Wave says 2 rebuilding teams going at it on a Monday night. That's the thing. I feel like the Dolphins are in even more of a rebuild mode than the Jets because their offensive line is a disaster. But when you have a quarterback, which again, Tua is not. I'm not putting Tua in like the top 5 in the NFL, but he's an above average quarterback, right? And when was the last time the Jets could say they had that for more than a few weeks at a time? So Miami's got the edge at quarterback, but the Jets Got to get the run game going. Obviously, Brees Hall, great week one, over 100 yards. Since then, he's got, I want to say 50 yards rushing, 51 yards rushing over the previous 2 games. Each of the last 2 games, we saw Tyrod Taylor was their leading rusher this past week, and Justin Fields the week before that. So if your quarterback is out rushing your running back, or quarterbacks are out rushing your quarterbacks on a regular basis, that's a bad thing. And let's see, folks, you got a struggling secondary. How about another receiver emerges? How about Allen Lazard? I know he had the big touchdown, but what do you have, 2 catches? Like, let's get someone else involved other than Garrett Wilson, so when the defense comes out of the huddle, they have more than one guy to think about. It's, that's one thing that's hamstringing this offense, is the fact that there is no true second threat for other teams to worry about. So that's it for this one, folks. Just a quick preview. We'll probably do another quick 3-minute preview day of. We'll look up more stats, notes, figures, facts about the 2 teams leading up to the game. And then Monday morning, we will do a quick 3-minute preview. Be sure to check that one out. Any breaking news between now and then, we will hop on live to get it to you and talk it out. Have a good one, Jets fans.